Hey, Josh. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show with Joshua Shigala. Joshua, you look very handsome today. I like your outfit.
Oh, thank you very much. I got a little bit of sun. I just came back from Tel Aviv, gave a great talk there at a blockchain conference about what are we going to do when robots take all of our jobs. And it was really interesting talking with people afterwards because, you know, I'm a bit of an economics buff. So I take a lot of the spare brain power that I've got left and think about that problem because I think it's a real problem that needs to be talked about.
Well, I mean, wouldn't your libertarian side just say, well, you know, then those jobs will be replaced, those labor resources will be reassigned to places where they're more productive?
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of robots are taking the jobs goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution when the Luddites started smashing up machines saying they're taking our jobs. And really, most people say, well, you know, it'll always be reassigned and labor will just be reassigned to more productive areas. But, you know, I really think that this time it's different because robots have eyes, they have AI, they can self-correct. They're not just dumb machines that are doing this and then a human has to come in and correct it. There's a lot of, you know, every single startup when I'm going to these conferences are disrupting inefficiencies. And the inefficiency is always human. And so I think there is this point where we're getting to the point where humans are becoming more and more obsolete. So it's a really interesting topic, and I think it's something that we all have to at least think about.
I don't know. All I know is that when I was younger, I saw Terminator 2, and ever since then, I'm very averse to AI and robots and all those kinds of things. I think that it could go horribly wrong.
Yet
it's coming. It's coming for us all. And maybe there'll be some good things. I'm not really sure what they're going to be, though. Yeah. We have to have more AI people on the show. I know we'll have Courtney Harding come on. She's really good. But cool. You're surrounded by a bevy of beauties today, Josh. Did you know that?
I know. I looked at the list. I was thinking, wow, and they're all such fantastic and interesting guests.
I think so.
Really excited. The first one we've got on is Cindy Shin.
Yeah, Cindy, why don't you come on and say hello to everybody? This is the first time for Cindy on my show. Hey, Cindy, great to see you today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome from Europe. How's everything?
Very good. We're happy to have you on the show today. Cool.
Thanks. So it's great to see you.
So what are you doing out in Europe? Are you there for a blockchain conference?
No, I was having some time off, and obviously it's Easter. So over in Europe, there's a big, huge thing, Easter and Passover going on at the same time this year, which is really awesome. So I did a little bit of skiing and some downtime, and now we're wrapping back up. It's a work week, so yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that you're getting a little bit of relaxation time in. When we first met, you had a lot of good advice, and later on, I found out it might be a little bit because of your background. For people who are not familiar with you, maybe you can give me and the audience a little bit of background as to your previous work experience and how you ended up in blockchain, because there's always so many different angles from which people come to this sort of centralized, decentral.
Sure, of course. Sure. I come from a management consulting and strategy background. I work for two really large, well-known firms, PwC and McKinsey. I started a company over 8.5 years ago and have been in the venture capital space since then. So I've been helping talk to startup ecosystems and startups and technology, as well as public and private sector partnerships, sometimes government. In Western Europe, between the US and also in Asia. And so I'm really familiar with kind of building businesses and scaling them for quite a while. And blockchain just landed in my radar because it's obvious it's another way of managing your data and lots of data. And I'm also a NASA Datanaut, which is a program out of the CIO's office at NASA that promotes data science. So everything came together in a universe, and blockchain is obviously another aspect of it. And what's really cool is it's decentralized as well. And I kind of feel like my business has operated decentralized, or at least feels that way anyway, because of all the different areas of the different countries that I've worked with. And and so it kind of landed in my lap at the end of last year, and I've been exploring the space and talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and looking at the use cases there and where investment opportunities are as well in order to scale. And so it's a very dynamic and exciting time right now. There's lots going on every day. You hear and you look at the whole world, it's changing it already. So
yeah, Well, for sure. I mean, it's definitely an exciting time, and I'm happy that you're based here in New York because now I have more blockchain New York friends. Um,
Right.
so you're actually
But I see you anywhere. I see you everywhere. I feel like it's like,
That's true.
hey, there's
Yes. Yeah, we did. We just saw each other down in DC for Perry Ann's
yeah,
event. So that was
yeah.
really fun and really, really nicely organized, actually. I thought that was one of the better
Mhm.
events for sure of the year. But now you're doing something a little bit different in New York. And that's sort of why we were thinking that this might be a good time for you to come on the show because you're taking your love of blockchain and marrying it. So tell me about what you have planned.
Well, I think that obviously there's a diversity issue in technology, and it also has spread into various areas, including blockchain. And with only 2 to 4% of women who are investing in blockchain technologies or on senior management boards, we're looking into doing something about it and adding the diversity. So, one of the initiatives that came up through my co-organizer of the conference, her name is Alexandra Kramer of CKR Law. Um, she decided, she put out a call to action to see if anybody was interested in helping her organize a conference of all female speakers in the blockchain space, covering anywhere from blockchain 101 to humanitarian use cases and social impact to coding, as well as investments and how to do ICO, et cetera. And regulations, of course, you can't talk about ICOs without regulations. So we're doing this conference on Sunday, May 13th, which is also happens to be Mother's Day. We're both mothers. I'm helping her co-organize the conference with my company, CLC Advisors. And we have so many interested speakers from all over the world who are coming in to speak at the conference, and it's been being run by volunteers. It's on like I said, Sunday, May 13th from 11 to 7 at the Williamsburg Hotel in Brooklyn. And we're helping kick off Blockchain Week in New York City.
That's awesome. I'm really excited and I'm really honored to be a part of it.
Yes.
That's going to be really neat. So how many speakers do you
Yeah.
have so far? Because it's from 11 to
And
7.
the last 11 to 7 so far. We've got I'm looking across the room because I'm thinking, how many do we have at least 20, I believe, from moderators. It's going to be covered by Forbes, is one of the companies that's going to be, or one of the media publications that's going to be writing about it. We have moderators that were former journalists with backgrounds from Forbes and Bloomberg, et cetera, who will be asking questions on the panelists. We have people from Tokyo coming in. We have people from Switzerland and Zug and foundations, Australia, Turkey. It really is a very global event. And there are a ton more speakers who are in my inbox that I need to get back to, who are interested in speaking. And it's been wonderful to see the interest that's on diversity from both men and women across, and anybody can attend. We're gender neutral in that respect, but it's going to be the place to be, especially if you want to look for talent in the space and diversity. So I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to come.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And
Mhm.
I feel like it should maybe be something that you try out in other places too. I don't think it necessarily needs to just be a one-time thing. I think a lot of people would like it around the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's been some interest for people, coming from Europe as well as in Asia for us to bring it over there. But there's what I hope and what we're seeing is that there's a trend where a lot of these conferences for diversity, all female speakers, et cetera, they're popping up all over the place. So we just hope that this is a big enough pebble that has a large magnifying effect that will continue this ripple around the world and share that, look, we need to have the code and the investments, et cetera. They all need to represent all different types. That's what we're talking about, decentralization and inclusion. When you're talking about blockchain, you definitely want that to occur. So let's see where this goes. And right now, I've got tunnel vision to make sure that we're tactically executing this conference in about 6 weeks' time. And you definitely will get some really, really wonderful speakers there that are coming on board. And the announcements will be coming out soon, very soon this week, as well as registration will be opening. So more
Great.
news.
So Josh, I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, the thing is, I've often got this in the past, and I am seeing more women coming into the space. But, one thing that was always strange to me is that, Bitcoin originally and blockchain now is all open source and totally inclusive on a technical level. And I always asked my women friends that are interested in the space, why don't you come along to these things? Why are you, being more there, present? And the answer I always definitely got back was that, well, when I go, it's all guys and there. And so what I realized was, no, that there's actually a lot of women that are interested in the space and interested in being seen and being present, but it's intimidating to go to a conference when there's just all guys there and the only women there are, promo girls and stuff like that, instead of actual intellectuals and artists and creators. So it's really good to see this sort of event stepping up, which is more focused at drawing in the women that have been there all behind the curtains that they can come out and feel more less threatened, I guess. And I don't think, we as a community are threatening. It's just, do you think, is that the sort of feedback that you get, that women feel threatened at when there's just vast number of men and that's all?
I don't think it's feeling threatened. It's always kind of the way that I think about it is, if you put a face that's there that hadn't been there before, every person that's different or diverse, a new dream is born, right? So if you look at the younger generations and up the pipeline, if they see someone who's there that kind of represents who they are, it's more of a multiplier effect, in the sense that they'll want to continue to keep coming because they'll see something that they can relate to on a much more internal and integral level than it is, on surfacely and seeing and working a room. We've all been to like a CES or a Mobile World Congress or whatever, working the room, and it is all men, with the exception of the promo girls. But this is exactly what we're trying to accomplish with this type of conference, is to look at the talent that's on board. And Microsoft has come on board as one of our sponsors, and they're actually sponsoring awards for women in the blockchain space that will be receiving an award for kind of paving the way on what has occurred so far in this relatively nascent area for women in general. I think in the broader respect too, on the market as well. As well, if the code is open source, most of the coders, I think some of the problems, that we were seeing with NASA and their space apps challenges was 85% of the people who showed up in order to do the hackathons and codes were men or boys, right? So if you're not giving a familiar face or that chance of a dream or a role model to occur and be born, then it's daunting. It's really daunting, and, unless you're very fortunate to belong in a computer science program or a science program or a STEM program where they were encouraging, females to join them because, like, we'll help you study, et cetera. And those are certain cases as well. And, it's a great time to be participating in this. And really, I think everybody has a lot to bring in on the table. And it's really, the conversations are there, and obviously they're making their mark because governments are paying attention. So let's figure a way to build something that's incredibly inclusive and go from there and see what happens.
Very cool. So all this is really encouraging. I'm excited for the event. Where can people get their tickets one more time before I know you've got a lot of stuff to do out in Europe right now, but Thank you for joining us. But I want to make sure that people know exactly where to go on May 13th on Sunday from 11 to 7 at the Williamsburg Hotel. Well, I guess I just told them. But what's the URL?
Yes. The URL is womenontheblock, all spelled out, .io. So you can find information there. And in the next few days, we're also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. It's Women on the Block. If you have any questions, you can email info@womenontheblock.io. So it's all across the social media channels, and pretty soon you'll be seeing some announcements from us. Just a couple of really quick sneak peeks, I guess we can say. Caitlin Long is coming to do a keynote as a speaker. She helped with the Wyoming blockchain legislation that just passed over in Wyoming, making it the first blockchain-friendly state in the U.S., as well as the CTO of the World Bank is coming as a speaker on a panel too. So Perry Ann Boring is going to come. So, lots of really powerhouse women, and some faces that you've never seen before either. So I'm really excited to meet them, particular ones who are coming all the way from, like Tokyo or Hong Kong, etc. So it'll be very exciting.
Yeah, well, I for sure. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll have to connect.
And you.
Yes, and I'll be there.
Tatiana.
Of course. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm looking forward to that. So that's
Thank
going to be fun.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I look
Thank
forward
you.
to it. Are you going to be back this week or no?
I'll be back next week, back in New York, and then I got to go back out to the West Coast and do some meetings over at Sand Hill, down in Silicon Valley. But yeah, I'll be back in New York pretty soon.
The life of a crypto warrior, it never ends.
Exactly. It's tech.
Keep populating
It's
the
tech
airports.
and it's digital. Exactly. Thank you so much,
All
everybody.
right. Thanks
it's
so
great
much.
to see you.
All right. Take care. Bye, Cindy. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See, Josh, this whole thing about there's no women in blockchain is so silly. And I don't think that they should be there as tokens either, though. That's the only thing that ever bothers me when we talk about women in this or this and that. Like, I've been looking at a lot of like different numbers. And diversity is sort of like there's a lot of things that go into the numbers of how people choose to spend their time. But I absolutely understand, when you go into a room and it's a whole bunch of guys, you don't want to be in there. I mean, yeah, if they're all really good looking, you're like, oh, okay, I'll suffer through it. But in a professional sense, and you're already learning this really weird technology thing. I don't know. I hear it, and I felt the same way.
Yeah, and it doesn't, it doesn't help when massive conferences like in Miami end up giving their after parties at strip shows and stuff like that. It really.
But he never even got in trouble for that. Like Mo has gotten called out for that so many times. People have called him out on Twitter, and just people continue to support it. I told at least a dozen people, listen, if you want to go there, you run the risk of being associated with a sexist hellhole. But so what are you going to do?
But I'm interested to find out how different it is culturally in different countries. Are women more?
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, missed out.
Well, hopefully you'll come to New York for consensus. I'm pushing for that right now. We're going to bring on our next guest, but wait, let's talk about one of our sponsors. Which sponsor should we talk about? There's so many people that are friends of the show. But the Bitcoin CPA, I always like to talk about Kirk because, there's tax time right now. You got to pay the tax man. Uncle Sam isn't letting us go. And so you got to make sure that you're doing it properly. Go to thebitcoincpa.com.
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
Well, if there is a sponsor out there that wants to sponsor the show, because we have a lot of listeners.
Good point.
Going for many years, and I think we should plug ourselves too.
Yeah. Well, they could talk to Dave at btcmedia.org, and then he can help them.
There you go. Yeah, and Crypto Compare is also a fantastic service. They allow you to compare all your different cryptos, keep your portfolio in check, make sure you're not losing too many, or if you are, then you're short on that moment when it is going down in price. And you can also compare it to gold using our Vaultoro API. So that's really cool too. So you can keep track instead of comparing it to filthy fiat. Who wants to do that? You get to compare it to actual gold bullion, your price, and how much bullion you're stacking.
So I also like their daily updates. My company, Crypto Media Hub, which is like a marketing PR type company for the crypto space, we are always looking for content so I can retweet it and show some love. And I'm always, I like the little, the tweets from Crypto Compare because they've got about 3 different topics, couple hashtags, slap a little RT on that, done. See, you gotta, stimulate your social media. Anyway, on that happy note, I want to bring on a trailblazer in the Libertarian Party, a doctor, and an awesome lady. Dr. Mary Ruwart comes to us from the Libertarian Party, but she also cares about the world at large. She's done a book called Death by Regulation, and I saw her be interviewed by Tom Woods and by Ron Paul, which I thought was super cool. And Mary's going to join us right now if she just unmutes herself. And she's going to tell us, why is regulation killing us? Well, it's not as easy as it sounds, but it's still kind of easy. Long story short, government sucks. But, well, they're doing a bad job. People in government, maybe some of them are nice. I shouldn't be so dismissive. But Mary, what's the problem? People are really, good intention with their regulations. So you wrote a book about it. Tell me first a little bit about why you're qualified to write this book. Are you really a doctor?
Yes, I'm a research doctor, PhD, not MD.
Okay.
And I've been in research academically and mostly with the pharmaceutical industry for many years. I was 19 years with the Upjohn Company. I now consult. I chair an IRB, an institutional review board, which is considered an ethical review board. And we monitor what information that subjects get when they go into a clinical trial of a new drug. So I've done a lot of different things in the scientific realm, so to speak. And one of the things I noticed when I was working at Upjohn is that the 1962 regulations were metastasizing every year and creating more of a problem. It used to be, before the regulations, took about 4 years for a drug to get to market. Now it takes closer to 14. So that's a huge increase.
Wow.
People die waiting. Yeah. When the AIDS patients were waiting for us to get new drugs out, of course, we couldn't do it fast enough because of the regulations. And so they hired black market chemists to make the new drugs. And by the time the FDA gave us permission to put our drugs in people, everyone in the country who was an AIDS patient who wanted them already had them and was resistant. So we had to wait for new diagnoses to actually do our test. I could go on and tell you many stories, but I want to get to the bottom line for your listeners. The bottom line is these 62 amendments to the Food and Drug Act have cost each of us about 5 to 10 years of our lives. And that's a conservative estimate. That's simply based on the impact on the pharmaceutical industry. These regulations really had their biggest impact, I believe, on our ability to prevent disease, because they really censored life-saving information about vitamins and other nutrients and preventative things we could do to protect our health. And of course, you remember Ben Franklin is attributed to the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that certainly is true in the medical field.
Mm. Mm.
Wow. Those numbers are just staggering. That really kind of popped out at me. So, okay, regulations are bad and they're killing people. That sounds terrible. Why isn't anybody else doing anything about this? And why are we still putting up with this? Obviously, it's hard to roll back things in the government because they're kind of slow, but what could be done? Because that seems pretty alarming. Those are big numbers.
Well, it is. And, after the AIDS patients went through this horrible process, the cancer patients sued the FDA and said the Constitution guarantees our right to protect our life. And, we want to use these unapproved drugs. The courts decided that, no, we do not have a constitutional right to protect our lives and save ourselves with unapproved drugs. So right to try, which has been passed in several states and now is in the U.S. Congress, is basically the same thing that the cancer patients were fighting for, which is that terminally ill patients can go directly to the drug company and negotiate with them for the ability to take their drugs, even if they haven't been approved by the FDA. Unfortunately, the way it's structured, the drugs would still have to be in the FDA track. FDA would still have to be happy with the progress. And so probably not too many companies will take advantage of this because, they're going to worry the FDA is going to punish them for dealing directly with the patient. There is another movement coming up, Free to Choose Medicine, that the Heartland Institute is sponsoring, which actually is similar, except that if you want to take a drug, once you are in that free to choose medicine track, you don't have to worry. The drug does not have to stay in the FDA's good graces. So I think, and that's, that's something I had suggested to Heartland because, obviously I saw this as a big pitfall. So I was glad that they, made the tracks separate. So that's coming up and that may help. It's a conservative plan to the one I propose in my book, which is to take the necessity of getting FDA approval away from the ability to market a drug so that you and I can decide at what point we feel a drug has had enough testing to take. So,
yeah, like a good stamp that says FDA approved. Oh, I trust that as a consumer, so I'm only going to choose that because it's FDA approved.
Yeah, so somebody can do that, and other people that feel they need the drug sooner can do it. And I think so. So in other words, we would convert FDA to a certifier of drugs.
Yeah.
And, we have certification for our electrical equipment. The UL symbol is a certification. It's not a regulation. You can buy an electrical appliance that doesn't have the UL symbol on it if you choose. But that's the way we could change the system, is using certification. And there's been consumer groups like the Abigail Alliance that have correctly predicted for 40 cancer drugs that they were working and should be approved an average of 2 years earlier than the FDA approved them. We have another group of Public Citizens which does a best pills, worst pills, and they have accurately predicted about 50% of the drugs that are going to be taken off the market, even though they've been approved by the FDA. So if consumer groups can do that well, there's no reason a certifying agency couldn't do it.
You said something interesting before about a drug company basically going to the black market almost and circumventing the FDA by secretly releasing. What other loopholes are companies using to get around these ridiculous?
Well, no, actually, companies didn't do that. The AIDS patients did it themselves. They were desperate. And if you remember the Dallas Buyers Club,
it's a really good movie, actually. I really enjoyed that film.
That's right. You could see how the FDA prosecuted and persecuted people who were just simply trying to save their lives. Now, they didn't do that with most of the California Buyers Clubs because those people had a lot of media attention. And so the FDA left them alone, but it did come after the loners. And that was very sad if you saw that movie. And you saw that he actually outlived the prediction of how long he was going to live, because a lot of the things that the Buyers Club did, they brought in nutrients, they brought in drugs from other countries, and of course, on occasion, they had drugs that we were working on with the pharmaceutical industry because they had chemists make them for them, and they did a pretty good job of distributing them and letting people know what the potential side effects were and everything. I mean, and this is all done behind the scenes. So if the AIDS patients can do that, again, certifiers should have no problem.
I find it funny that the regulations are all about making the drugs, and in America anyway, you guys are free just to market it to anyone. And so you turn on the television and every second ad is an ad for some strange drug that only really a doctor someone that's very professionally trained in understanding all the side effects should actually prescribe. Instead, most people go to the doctor, hey, I saw this ad on TV for so-and-so, and I do have these symptoms, so I should have that. It's sort of strange to me.
Well, even the advertising has been affected by these 1962 amendments. The companies have to go to the FDA and get their ad approved before they run it. If they don't, then the FDA can confiscate all of their drug. So naturally, companies spend a lot of time making sure those ads fit what the FDA wants. And that's why you see all those side effects at the end. That's all FDA driven. And actually, that's true in manufacturing too. I talk about this a little bit in the book. The manufacturing requirements went up so high and cost so much money that they drove the small companies right out of business in the late 60s. And then, of course, what's happening today is many companies that have new things, very new novel drugs, are going bankrupt as they try to bring them to the market. And that's very sad. And of course, the reason that's happening is these regulations, again, metastasize every year. So the costs of meeting the regulation every year. And in fact, what we pay at the pharmacy is directly related to the regulatory costs.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's not, you know, drug companies are greedy and they're raising their prices. They're raising their prices because their costs of doing business behind the scenes with the FDA is going up. And it's not going up a little, it's going up, what we say, exponentially, which means it's really going up rapidly, not in a straight line, but rapidly.
I always find it sad because actually it's the rare diseases that suffer the most, because the
That's
rare
right.
diseases have no, you know, it's not a mass market. There's a few people that have really shocking problems.
That's right.
And they're quite, you know, they might be on, some company might be on the brink of solving that, but there's no money in it because there's only, you know, 10,000 people with this problem. So they won't even bother going through the approval process. Yeah.
Well, they did try to put a Band-Aid on that. They call it the Orphan Drug Act. And what they do now is if a company gets one of those drugs to market, they give them a 7-year monopoly. But, you know, that's, again, then the company raises its prices. It has to, you know, to make up for all the failures. In fact, it's not just the orphan drugs that are going under. You know, I had a call from the FDA one day in my lab, and they said, oh, you know, we're really excited about this patent you filed on prostaglandins and liver disease because there's nothing for it. So, you know, we're excited. We want to help you get this to market. But the problem is when you have something new, you don't know how much you have to give, how often you have to give it. You don't know how many years you might have to give it, because something like liver disease takes a long time to build up. It probably takes a long time to cure. And you don't know how many people you need in the study to have the statistical significance that the FDA requires. And if you guess wrong, since these studies take years, and you have to repeat them by the time you get the drug to market, it'll go generic the first day, and you won't be able to recover your you know, regulatory costs or any of the costs of developing it. So Upjohn decided not to do it, even though it was novel and it would have been really helpful. So that's the kind, a lot of things get left on the shelf. And 50, I estimate, well, we know from studies, I should say, at least 50% of our innovations drop out towards the end of the development. And if you count the ones that drop out and never get started, like the example I just gave you, it's probably closer to 80%. Now, this is a really big problem because innovation is really what makes our health costs go down. For example, when the anti-ulcer drug Tagamet came on the market, it was expensive. It cost about $1,000 for a year, and sometimes you needed 2 years, so $2,000. But the surgery that you would have if you didn't have the drug was $25,000, and you had a lot of downtime because, of course, if you get cut open, you miss work time. You have to rest, you know. So if you could take pills, you could keep going to work. So, you know, when we have something that can be treated, that's really good. But, you know, I'm actually talking about the minor problems because all these estimates are for the pharmaceutical industry. The big problem with these amendments is they really shifted us from inexpensive prevention to expensive treatment. And I'll just give a quick example of that. In the early 80s, we knew that folic acid, a B vitamin, could prevent neural tube defects in children. And these are very terrible birth defects. You know, basically most of the children are institutionalized. So you would think that the FDA would be very excited about this, but instead it told folic acid manufacturers if they even mentioned these scientific articles that showed you could almost totally prevent these birth defects, that they would shut them down. And even when the Center for Disease Control started recommending that young women take folic acid as a preventative because you need it in the first month or two of pregnancy, the FDA told the folic acid manufacturers that they'd shut them down if they even mentioned that. Now, eventually, the FDA decided to demand that food processors put folic acid in their grains and things of this nature. But, you know, you don't know how much you're getting when you do that. So it wasn't as effective as it could have been. And, you know, it was interesting because in Europe, some of the countries allowed advertisements about folic acid from the manufacturers. And in those countries, the birth defects from, you know, neural tube defects went way down almost immediately. The whole country knew about it and everyone of childbearing potential was taking it. So, and this, I'm talking about one use for one vitamin here. So that cost us in the US about 10,000 or so babies that were born needlessly deformed, and many more were aborted because you could test for these defects in utero. So it's very sad. And this is where I think we've lost even more years of our lives, but it's very, very hard to put a number on that. So when you think about the numbers that I present in Death by Regulation, realize that these are minor compared to the prevention.
Wow, that's just staggering. Are there any other countries in the world that do it better than the US and the FDA?
Well, there are a few. The European Union uses certifiers for their medical devices. The certifiers work with the companies and make sure they've got their package together. And then if the certifier recommends approval, the European FDA equivalent will approve it. So Europe gets medical devices years and years before we do, simply because of that process. And of course, that's just partial certification since the approval still has to be there. But when I was working in the industry, we used to not do our first studies in the US anymore. We went overseas where the regulations weren't so strict. And, that's where we tested, that's where the drug was marketed first. So the US was way behind on some major advances like propranolol for heart disease, the first beta blocker. And it was so happening so much, they even had a name for it. They called it the drug lag. Now things have improved a little bit, but unfortunately, there is a movement worldwide to harmonize all of the regulations, which means make them all look like the FDA. So this is a very big problem. And that's why I wrote Death by Regulation. There aren't too many people who have the insider knowledge that could put this together. And also, I just wanted to share with your listeners, we do have a special offer going. If they order before April 9th, they get $60 worth of free gifts. So hopefully they'll order it, because what we're doing is collecting all these orders. And on April 10th, me and my team will put them through the Amazon.com site. And in doing that, we hope to push it up to bestseller list. Amazon will then market it to, people who may not be so liberty-minded. And the thing is, it affects us all, whether we're FDA examiners, pharmaceutical representatives or executives, researchers, patients, doctors, we're all affected. So everybody is being hurt by this regulation. So my hope is in sharing that information that the FDA and other our organizations that might not be so keen on getting rid of the regulations will reconsider. It's in their own best self-interest to do so.
Well, yeah, when I saw that you were trying to get to the top of the Amazon list, I kind of know a little bit about how important it is to be on that list. And I thought, oh, yeah, we've got to get Mary up that list. Because, I mean, you're on Tom and you're on with Dr. Paul. So that's great. But we wanted to get you on with our crypto people. And the crypto people know what it's like with regulation, ruining our day every day. All that good intention, not really good execution or outcome.
Yes, and in fact, these regulations were passed to increase safety, but they didn't do it. The rate at which the FDA approves drugs and then withdraws them from the market as side effects show up, if anything, has gone up since the passage of the amendments. I suspect there really isn't any difference between pre and post amendment, but the numbers are a little higher. So obviously we haven't improved the situation at all. And I talk about some other safety issues in the book as well. But, we might be willing to pay the high costs if it actually made our drugs better, but it's not. It's making them worse.
Yeah, that's for sure. Are you going to do an audiobook version, or is it just the regular version for now?
No, we'll have Kindle and audio, but it'll be a couple months down the road.
Okay. Are you gonna narrate it or no?
No, I probably won't. Although, I might consider this is a little bit shorter book than Healing Our World was. I didn't think I could handle doing that, but I think the people who've been recording my audiobooks do such a good job. I hesitate. I don't think my voice is as good as theirs.
Well, I don't know. I always like hearing from you, and thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's it sounds a little bit overstated, but it's like a service to humanity. And I'm glad that you're able to bring attention to this because it's super important. I'll be sure to share this episode with family and friends just to get the word out for sure. Huh?
Where do people go to get the book, to get this
Oh, yes. If you want to order it and help us get to the Amazon bestseller list, don't go to Amazon. Go to deathbyregulation.us. deathbyregulation.us. If you want to, you can also go to my website, ruwart.com. It is there as well. But deathbyregulation.us will do the trick, and we'll get your order. You'll immediately get your free gifts. They're all digital. And then what will happen is on April 10th, we'll input your order to Amazon, and hopefully we'll get up to the Amazon bestseller list.
Very good. I'm going to be ordering it, actually. I think it'll be a nice gift. So wait, do we get a physical copy or no if we order online, or do we only get like a Kindle copy?
Oh no, you'll get the physical copy. It'll ship April 10th.
This is it's a good present for Mother's Day or Father's Day.
Yes. If you have someone who's interested in that type of thing, and actually, like I said, we should all be interested because it affects us all. And that's the although it's horrible to think that way, because the subtitle of my book is How We Were Robbed of a Golden Age of Health and How We Can Reclaim It. And of course, this book shows how we were robbed, but it also shows that it's in everyone's best interest to get rid of these regulations, even if they think they profit by them. So I'm really hoping it will make a contribution to the reform effort that's going on now.
I hope so too. Very good. All right. Well, thanks so much, Mary. We appreciate you coming on.
Well, I really appreciate being here. I want to thank you both for having me, and I hope your listeners have a great day.
Yeah, same to you. deathbyregulation.us, everyone. Very good. I like it. Okay. So now what'd you say? I know, it was crazy. I was listening to it online, and to listen to the same topic on multiple stations, it means that you're pretty intrigued, and I got something out of both interviews. So hopefully our listeners got something out of it too. Thank you, Mary, for joining us. Our next guest is a new guest to the show. Brittany Hunter is a good friend of mine, and she also writes for Fee, and she's doing all sorts of interesting, fun things. So Brittany, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. We like your sparkle background. It suits
always sparkles.
Always
sparkles with me.
So have you met Josh before? Josh, have you met Brittany?
No, I haven't. No. But
lucky you.
You sound like a fascinating person. You've done a lot of stuff. You're an associate editor at the Foundation of Economic Education. What's that like?
I have learned more there as a writer than I think I ever did in any of my formal education years. Every day is basically like an economic boot camp, but I actually get to write about what I learned. So it almost feels more like a fellowship than a job. I'm really lucky. So yeah.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, and so what brings you to what message do you want to spread through the time?
No. First of all, what brings you to the world of liberty, right, Brittany? Because you came from sort of like a little bit of a different background, and you've been almost like a woman unleashed. I like it.
I've been a little bit, yeah. So I feel like I've probably always been a libertarian, like all of us. Little things happened, and then you kind of hear the word, and you're like, oh, that's me. But Ron Paul, like many people, did it for me. I found him right after the 2008 excitement. So I found him like very end of 2008, and was just kind of like looking forward to being an activist and sign waving, in 2012 and being part of the excitement. Actually, it's interesting. So Mary, the last guest, she was one of the first Liberty people I ever got exposure to, because For Liberty, the documentary, was made, and she's in there. So I was sitting here, I was like, I know you from the movie.
Fantastic.
Very cool. So you've been writing now for Fee for a while, and I see that you're doing sort of pieces on Hayek. Is that right?
I did. Yeah, I live blogged The Road to Serfdom.
So
that's a heavy light blog.
It was a heavy load.
So, okay, I've been a libertarian for a while now, and I think, you're right. It's something that we sort of pick up on all our lives, and then all of a sudden there's a label for it. But I've never really gotten into reading some of these Austrian economists. It just seems so boring, and I hate nonfiction. But you're slogging through it, and you're making it exciting and fun. So I want to know, how do I or somebody else who feels similarly to me, like, what do we do? What's some recommended reading? What do they do in order to like start getting their street cred?
Read my live blog. Don't read the book. It's a lot.
Okay.
Sorry, Hayek.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's pretty bold.
And I'm not a Hayekian either. Like, I'm definitely more like Team Mises, Team Rothbard. But to discount Hayek and his genius would be a blunder. It's really hard. It's a hard book. I ended up reading each chapter twice and listening to each audio chapter twice.
Wow.
And then crying for a few hours and then like having an epiphany and saying, okay, this is complete connection to something going on in our modern day. So I think if you can look at Hayek from that perspective, it becomes a lot easier. I was able to see Obamacare. I was able to see even mentions of smart contracts that he could never have fathomed. So it was really, really cool to see it in present day perspective.
So, but does somebody get anything out of that besides bragging rights?
No, but the bragging rights feel pretty good. I think as somebody who didn't finish college, I dropped out to work for Ron Paul and I never went back. That's kind of why I read all these books, because I feel like I do have to kind of prove myself surrounded in a world of people, especially when I worked at Mercatus, where they're scholars, they're modern day Austrian scholars. And I'm sitting here like, hey, I like Ron Paul. So that's kind of what got me to really start reading these books.
Okay, so what do you think that there's a lot of ladies in liberty now? We had this lady theme. Do you have any opinions on ladiness?
I think
because it's a little bit opposed to libertarianism. Like my inner feminist and then my inner libertarian are like, can't we all just get along? And I don't know. That's
well, and my inner capitalist is like, please no more women because it makes my value go up. I know that's terrible. I'm like, no, we're good.
Well, no, that's actually a very good point. I was listening to a really great podcast with on Let's Talk Bitcoin, and they were talking about how they have an artificial premium for women in the tech space just because of their rarity. So you're actually getting more for it.
Well, that's what
I don't know how I feel about that either. That's kind of weird. I don't know. The whole thing is a little bit funny, but I do identify with that. I want to see a familiar face at a conference, and I don't want it to be a sausage fest.
No, and that's my first crypto conference was a few weeks ago, and I was noticing that was short on women. So yes. That's definitely a thing. But
listen, there's a lot of available men there. So
there were a lot of available men there. So I was like, all right, the odds are in my favor. This is fun. But I really liked it. I learned a lot. I met a lot of cool people.
Okay. So any final impressions? What do you think of blockchain now? How deep have you gone down the rabbit hole?
Well, so I used to make blockchain and Bitcoin music videos music videos. I don't know where that came from. YouTube videos back in 2012 and 2013. But that was when it was new. There was a lot of excitement going around. Bitcoin actually kind of pulled me out of my like post Ron Paul slump.
That's how I felt about it. Right? I was depressed after Ron Paul. You know, I was after 2012. What?
We had a blimp and everything.
I know, we tried so hard. And you know, what was the worst was like having to fight everybody with such vigor and just all my heart saying, you don't know anything. You don't know how many people are there. The media is against him and
he's gonna win.
He has the votes. He has them. And in a lot of ways, he really did have the legit stuff in order to at least advance. And they just broke their own rules.
Exactly.
So it's nice with Bitcoin as an early adopter, or not that early, but 2012, getting to say now that there is some vindication for being right about that, right? Like I thought I was right about Ron Paul. I totally thought he was going to win and I was wrong. But now I've got all my street cred back, even with the price being a little bit low, whatever.
Well, and you're actually putting decentralization in practice. You are creating the world Ron Paul wanted us to create, right? I mean, it's decentralized. That's what blockchain does.
Yeah. And not only that, we're proving that the economic theory, you know, now you're seeing these people saying, oh, I'm a crypto economist. Why is there such a term as crypto economist? It's because, economist, I should say, is because the theories are getting so twisted on the head. People are thinking, oh, so there isn't that much wrong with a deflationary currency, or there isn't something wrong with an asset-based, bearer-based asset monetary system. We don't need a debt-based system that can be printed out of thin air by one centralized group. We can have stuff printed out of thin air by a decentralized group and it still works, or it doesn't. And we're testing all these economic theories out, and it's just wonderful to see, especially from a libertarian front.
Yeah, it's competing currencies in a lot of ways. It's this world we always talked about, and now it's happening, just not in the physical space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I always think of it this way, you know, when people say, oh, is Bitcoin going to win and is cryptocurrency going to win? And I'm like, in a way it already has, in the sense that we're asking, what is money? And people have been in this slumber for, you know, years and years and years, where they just don't ever think about that. They've never thought of anything other than a centralized currency issued by, you know, central bank or whatever. So I think it's pretty cool to see people just thinking outside the box, or seeing this huge like shift in people's consciousness overall.
Yeah, definitely. And this notion that no one's spending crypto is also false, because more money was spent on ICOs last year than the entire VC space globally. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's being spent like crazy. You know, it's just being spent in a different way.
Well, that was kind of my primary thing back in the earlier days when I was doing videos, was showing what you could buy with it. And that's, you know, about the time that Overstock was letting you buy things with Bitcoin. So that was kind of the fun thing for me, is, look, I'm using futuristic money to buy makeup on overstock.com. Like, how cool is this? And I kind of wish I wouldn't have spent all that Bitcoin now, but
yeah. You probably still have the makeup. It's just all old.
I do
and
still have the
dusty in a
makeup.
drawer, and you're looking at that and you're like a pile of $7,000 or something. Especially if you're buying your Bitcoins, then one tube of makeup could have been,
I was like so mad that it was like 300 for a Bitcoin. Like, so much money.
Well, but you know what? Now, if it wasn't for all the people, though, that were buying their makeup and their alpaca socks, we wouldn't even be here today. So
you're welcome.
I like the term rehodl. You know, you hodl, but you spend it and you rebuy it back at that moment. Just, you know, using the crypto, but converting the filthy fiat back into crypto as fast as you can.
I think it's a little bit painful when the markets are volatile when you're working that theory. But anyway, so Brittany, what's going on with Fee? Is Fee getting into crypto now, or is it just you? I mean, I think that you guys have been doing stuff for a long time. Roger was a big contributor.
His face is painted on our wall, actually. We have a Roger Ver.
Really? A mural? Oh, I believe I may have seen that. So you guys have FeeCon coming up. Zen Cash is going to be there. I talked with Jason Riddle about that. I think I'm actually going to be singing at FeeCon.
Yes.
I tried to get Josh to come. He wussed out. I said, Josh, stop being a wuss. And he was like, I have to work. And then.
Is that your Australian accent?
That's my impression of you. But I really, really enjoyed my time there last year. I think Atlanta's a hot spot. So tell me, what's going on with FeeCon? Sell me.
That's where we met last year. So that should be the big seller, is
the 1 year anniversary.
The 1 year anniversary of Tatiana and Brittany coming together once again in Atlanta. FeeCon was one of the highlights of my summer last year. And I'm going to be honest, and I love Fee because I work there. I did not know what to expect, because I'm like, oh, we're starting a conference. It's either going to be really good or really bad. I was blown away with the work our programs department put into it. It was well attended. It was attended with like the right people too. Bitcoin.com had a presence. There was a lot of cool crypto things going on, and a lot of cool breakout sessions for all varieties. I think we even had one that's like the economics of Harry Potter, and the economist who gave it dressed up as a wizard. I was entertained. So there's something for everyone at FeeCon, and Tatiana might be there. So head on over to Atlanta this June.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really neat. I think it's 7th through the 9th. And I like Atlanta. It's also pretty easy to get there. They've got a lot of planes. So if you want to come in from out of town and come to Atlanta.
We do have a lot of planes. Yeah.
Very good. Cool. So I don't know. Do we have anything else to talk about today? I think it's been a really, really good show. Lots of Lady Liberty and cryptocurrency stuff. So that's always fun. I don't know, Josh, Brittany, what do y'all guys think? Anything else we should talk about?
I'm gobsmacked by the talent that you seem to endlessly bring on this show, and no, I'm done.
Well, we've got a lot more people coming on the show. So I don't know. We've got a lot of episodes planned this week, so I'll be releasing them all. And if people want to go to the website, it's called thetatianashow.com. And it's not completely up to date, but we're at a point where I think people can start going over there and checking it out. We'll be uploading all the old episodes and stuff over the upcoming weeks, but you can get a quick peek at thetatianashow.com. Also, please check out my website, cryptomediahub.com. If you or anyone you know need marketing, PR, advertising, etc. services for the crypto space, come and talk with us. Josh, you want to plug Vaultoro? We got to get Brittany in here. Brittany's got to plug her stuff. So tell me, guys, where can people hang with you?
Well, if you follow me at Vaultoro on Twitter, we constantly tweet about crypto and gold and all sorts of news and education. But also, if you want to take your profits off the table in crypto and convert it to gold, we have a full marketplace. We're the only place in the world that has a full marketplace, and you can convert your gold back to crypto as soon as you want using the marketplace. So we don't set the price. It's a full marketplace, fully insured, fully audited by one of the largest auditing firms in the world, sitting in Switzerland, one of the largest gold vaulting facilities in Europe. It's the way to go. Screw fiat.
Yep. Filthy fiat. Come over to the crypto side. Brittany, where can people read your work and where can they catch up with you? You're going to be at some more crypto conferences, I think. So
I will be. I don't know which ones yet, but that's pending. So you can read my work at fee.org and also the Center for Individualism.org. And also the Mises Wire, and also Newsweek and Business Insider on occasion. So connect with me on social media. It's Brit_the_wit at that's Twitter and Instagram. And then Facebook, I am always saying something crazy on Facebook. So follow my Facebook. Just
tune in. She's got crazy stories for y'all. It's been so fun. Thanks so much, Brittany, for coming on. Thanks Josh. Me. Thank you to Cindy. We'll see you in Williamsburg, May 13th, womenontheblock.io. Mary Ruwart, make sure that you pick up her book, pre-order that ASAP. Go to, what is it? deathbyregulation.us. And then catch up with Brittany and I at FeeCon. And I don't know. I'll see you all. Oh, wait, by the way, for upcoming shows, I'll be in Toronto, April 19th, Sunny's event. And then I'll be at the Andreas LTB Bonanza in Chicago on the 25th of April. So, y'all can find me there, and Consensus should be fun too. So see y'all later. Peace. Thank you. Bye.